Studios, you're listening to Kearney Live on 102.7 KPGZ. Kearney Live is presented by Kearney Trust Company. Kearney Trust, 310 West 92 Highway in Kearney. The phone number is 816-628-6666. And now here's the hosts of Kearney Live, Mike Davis and Jim Dickerson.
Thank you. I appreciate you. You're a great audience. Hey, welcome to Kearney Live. I'm your host, Mike Davis, along with producer engineer, and this is why we need him. You keep us in line, Brian Watts, and my good friend and co-host, Mr. Jim Dickerson, who, indeed, Jim Dickerson, that's right, Jim Dickerson is kind of a big deal. He'll tell you, Jim Dickerson.
That's absolutely big correct.
Deal.
Glad to be here.
And I did want to mention, too, that we have one of our favorite guests sitting in studio with us, and we'll get to him in a minute. But Mr. Jerry Nolte, he is your Clay County Presiding Commissioner. Welcome to the show. Thanks for being here, Jerry.
Thank you to the amassed multitudes cheering.
Well, I just wanted you, look, how many jobs can you go to without being a professional athlete where people will actually clap? You get a round of applause just for showing up. This is one of them.
I will look into that. In fact, if I could get a portable version of that not laugh track, the applause track.
No, we save that one for Jim. Jim gets the laugh track. Yeah.
And I usually get the cricket track, because when I say something, everybody just sits there and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe he said that."
Well, just know that Jim and I both have traded our salaries for the applause. That's so
we pay a lot for that.
It comes at a price. Don't doubt me on that.
But you brought something up just a second ago, and we can't not talk about it.
Bring it.
The Chiefs.
Oh yeah. Yes.
So we had, and we've talked a lot about this off the air, and we've talked about it on Facebook and everything else. But we had Bo Brinkley in here about a year ago and he's the long snapper for the Tennessee Titans, and we had him in here, and really great guy, down to earth. Of course, a former Kearney football player. So it's,
once a Bulldog, always a Bulldog.
Yeah, it's great to see a guy who was here, a local guy that was on the Kearney football field, and now he is here, or he will be here on Sunday for the playoffs that go to the Super Bowl. However, at this point, we are perplexed, because what do you do with that?
I know exactly what to do. I wish him the best.
The Chiefs have not been to the Super Bowl
50 years.
In 50 years.
Yeah, that's 5-0 for those who are keeping track.
Yeah, and a lot of people out there weren't even alive 50 years ago.
This is true.
I'm sad to say most of us were. But I digress.
You always do.
So, and we were so close last year, and I don't want to blame it on anybody, D. Ford, but
that's no secret, Jim.
So we have that. But I've had one thing that I have always thought would be the neatest thing if it would happen here in Kansas City before I cash it all in. And you know what that is, Mike?
I have a pretty good idea. I know what I'm hoping for.
Well, it's not just...
You want me to jump out of your next birthday cake. Is that it? Anything close to that?
No, that's not it. In fact, I just threw up a little.
Do tell, Jim.
No, what I really think would be neat is to have the Chiefs go to the Super Bowl,
right,
and the Royals win the World Series in the same year.
I would like that.
So now
I think it's asking for an awful lot.
It is, but we have a new ownership group over at the Royals, right, and they said they are committed to winning, which is something that Glass never did. He won, but he was always very clear that
there's no commitment.
No, the commitment was to the money, and I'm not going to argue with you, but the fact of the matter is this new ownership group has made it very clear they're committed to winning.
Yeah,
the Chiefs are committed to the winning. Yeah, and so now we're to a point where what happened on Sunday was
words are hard. I know.
And my wife makes fun of me for this, but
it's not the only thing she makes fun of you for. Please continue.
Are we at a commercial yet? No. A lot of time left. No, one of the things she makes fun of me for is that
you want the Royals to go to the Super Bowl.
No. Would you shut up? One of the things she Merry Christmas. So
I hope she's listening.
Thanks for being with us. Good night. No, one of the things that she makes fun of me for is because even when the Chiefs were horrible, like the years where they won 2 games, I'd watch all the games all the way through. Yep. And the same thing with the Royals. As miserable as it is, I sit there and gripe, complain, yell, throw things, replace TVs. I don't know how they get broken like that. But, but I suffer through. So the ability for me to be able to watch both teams make it in 1 year would be like amazing. A dream come true.
I would agree with you, and I would welcome that. However, I think the 2015 championship Royals, along with potentially a 2020, it would be the 2019 season, but a 2020 championship. Frankly, I'd like to see him get there, the Chiefs, but I can't even imagine. From Jerry and I were talking earlier, we went to high school together, so we remember when the Chiefs came to Kansas City. I mean, we as they say, we were old enough to remember, and yes, indeed, and even when they played at Old Municipal Stadium.
Yes,
and yeah. So very exciting, and Bo Brinkley, we're going to welcome you here, and certainly is one of Kearney's own. Terrific guy, no doubt about it, and we had a great time chatting with him about a year ago, and as Jim says, one of the most humble and down-to-earth guys you're ever going to meet. And I think he did, though. He sort of made, I wouldn't call it a promise, but you got the sense that he was going to be back, and he was going to be back to Kansas City, not for that first game, but for another game that is more important, and that would be the AFC Championship, which everybody knows, and that's at, 2:05, I think?
Yeah, it's 2:05. And just to be clear, Bo.
We love you, buddy.
Love you. And good luck.
Exactly.
And so here's the deal, too. Remember, I remember this very well, because one of his things that he said would be a dream of his, which I think would be awesome, is he snaps, they punt, he runs down, causes a fumble, picks the ball up, runs in for a touchdown.
Right, yeah.
I hope that happens.
I think it'd be great.
In the fourth quarter, when you're down by 30.
When it's 32, matter. And it would make it 32-7.
Exactly. But that's a tough one. But good luck. I mean, in all seriousness, that's great for him to have played here and for a hometown guy to come back and be able to come back to Kansas City and be playing for the Super Bowl.
It's an exciting time of year, and to have the Chiefs in the Final Four of the NFL. That's not an easy thing to do for any NFL team. And I know there's a ton of football fans here in Kearney, Missouri, and I know they love their Bulldogs. We sure do. But the seeing the Chiefs, and within 5 years of the Royals winning the World Series is seeing them this close. You can taste it. You can taste it. Moving along to other things, Jim. I think one of the things I did want to mention was that we had talked a couple of weeks ago, or I guess it was last week, and we try to every week, about the Shop Local campaign, and we want this to continue. We are partnering up with the Kearney Chamber of Commerce to be sure that this campaign lives and has momentum as we push through the year 2020, and frankly, on and on. I don't think there's any doubt in anybody's minds by this time you understand the value of it. I think everybody understood the value of Shop Local to begin with, but all we did was sort of stamped a little bit of a brand on it, and created an awareness campaign that makes people go, oh, yeah, that's right. There are good reasons that will benefit me personally, meaning you personally, by shopping local. We do have a video queued up, Brian. Let's go ahead and play that.
Hi, everybody. Jim Dickerson with 102.7 FM KPGZ on behalf of the Kearney Chamber of Commerce and the Shop Local campaign. I'm here at CarStar Porters, and I'm here with Aaron Porter. And Aaron, why do you think it's so important that people shop local?
Well, we got to grow this community, and we got to make it as good as we can. When you shop local, your tax dollars go to the infrastructure, to the parks. Not only that, we're the people that sponsor their baseball teams, their soccer teams, everything in town. All the downtown Kearney stuff that the downtown businesses do. That's us, and the only way we can do that is with the help from the community and people shopping local and using us instead of going to other places.
And with that in mind, would you be willing to take the Shop Local pledge?
I will.
When you shop locally, you support Kearney businesses who in turn help make our community a better place to live, work, and play. Our schools, parks, neighborhoods, and charitable organizations thrive as a byproduct of hard-working local entrepreneurs and people like you who choose to do business with them. Your Kearney Chamber of Commerce encourages you to shop local in Kearney.
This is Aaron Porter, CarStar Porter's Kearney Body Shop, and I pledge to shop local whenever possible. I took the pledge.
Well, he did.
That was a quick ending.
So
I guess that's over.
Aaron Porter took the pledge, and we're glad he did. I think been quite a few people have taken that pledge. I think we did. We took a group pledge at one of the chamber meetings. I think it might have been our last meeting, maybe at the end of 2019.
One of the things about that's been really neat about that campaign as we've gone to all these different businesses is seeing kind of the behind the scenes that we get to see how they do it. And Aaron Porter showed us around there when we were over there a few weeks ago doing that. And it was really interesting to see all the work and not only the work, but the lengths that they go through. And I will tell you the lengths they go through over there at Porter's to make sure that you get your car back on time or early is phenomenal.
It is.
The way they do it, the way they do the ordering of whatever parts are needed and making sure that there's no hiccups on the way. Really impressive. So that was really cool to see when we were over there. So
absolutely true. We get a little peek behind the curtain of these businesses that as we go in and shoot these minute and 30-second videos or so, and it's really neat to see get inside and get to meet some of the other employees as well too. So
with that, let's get a little peek behind the scenes of Clay County government. How do you feel about that?
I like the sound of it. Jerry, welcome to the show again. It is always a pleasure to have you here, and we here in Clay County. I don't think that you could be any more appreciated as the presiding commissioner.
But it's a great county, and as I was watching the promo on Kearney, that's one of the amazing things about Clay County is you've got a number of municipalities, and they all have distinct personalities. They're not cookie cutters. So Kearney has its unique flavor, its unique personality, which differentiates it from the others. So when we're trying to encourage businesses to locate here, we can give them a menu and say, there are a lot of variety of situations in Clay County. Pick the one that's best for your business.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. What do you see specifically when? And you're not going to bag on anybody. I mean, but I would just say, Kearney versus Smithville. I mean, just from a standpoint of a new business entering Clay County, how do these different flavors compare? How does the flavor of Kearney compared to the flavor of Smithville, if you will? And you will.
Yeah. One of the great things of many things about Kearney is it is expanding. Its growth is really going through the roof, and the same can be said of Smithville. There's a different flavor to them in that Smithville obviously has the lake, and there's a different personality. Kearney is a little different personality from that still, and because of the proximity and the ability to expand, it's really it's got the growth potential there that is really dynamic, and then that goes all the way to the other municipalities. Gladstone, for instance, although it's landlocked, they've gone a long ways in making sure they've redefined their city center and to have an identity. And of course, you're familiar with Gladstone, so they have a real effort to take what they have being landlocked and doing the most they can with what they have, whereas a city like Kearney has the ability to expand and to grow in a different way. So there's just different opportunities. The airport, being in close proximity, of course, is a big deal. It's a great facility. It's something that we need to make sure that we really develop much more. It's one of those assets. The length of the runway really gives us an advantage over some other communities, like say Lee Summit. Their runway, it's not all about size, of course, but our runway is longer than theirs. Just saying.
Remember that time last week when I said we act childish sometimes? This is one of those times. I thought that was terrific. I don't know. I may be the only one in Kearney laughing right now about that.
Well, when it comes to promoting Clay County, I don't mind. If I need to be serious to promote Clay County, fine. If I need to be a little silly, that's fine too. Whatever moves the needle for our county.
Yeah,
exactly.
And I would agree. As somebody who obviously I use the airport quite a bit, and it's not the size of the runway that matters; it's how you use it.
That's true.
I've gone about as far down that road as I think I need to at this moment. But it's a great asset and one we need to really develop, and that's something a lot of words are spoken about. Some of the shortcomings about Clay County, but we have a fantastic amount of potential, and the window that we have in this county is still open. We are growing, and we're going to continue to grow. I was just over at the Clay County EDC this morning for a meeting, and one of the expressions that we use, and it's been used a lot, but it is true, and that is Clay County is going to grow, no matter what I or anyone else has to say about it or do about it. But what we can control, what we can give some focus to is how we grow, making sure that it is growth that is healthy and increases the prosperity of our populace.
Right. One of the things that I notice as I'm a Platte County resident, but we own a business here with the radio station here in Clay County. So I'm big fans of both. I grew up in Clay County, as you mentioned earlier, in Gladstone.
Right.
But one of the things I notice as a Platte County resident is the tremendous growth that's happening right there. And from a residential point of view, you see houses being built, and I could certainly see the same thing happening within the next 10 years or so right here in Clay County.
Absolutely.
And so you see all of these people coming in. We've talked about this a little bit, about how you plan for such a thing with regard to infrastructure, but it just seems like in Platte County it's happening so quickly that the roads, the infrastructure, particularly roads, it's like, my gosh, you wake up one morning and it's a nonstop traffic jam. I mean, how do you plan that? I know the city does a terrific job here in Kearney. But I mean, as countywide, how do you plan for such a thing?
Actually, you just put your finger on it, and that is to cooperate on a multi-level basis. One of the things that I'm going to be working towards trying to do during this upcoming year is we had at one time a coalition of cities within Clay County, and they would meet on a regular basis, talk about policy, growth, legislation in Jefferson City. I think what we need to do is I would like to see us revitalize that. And I think during the course of this year, if we can do that, our best partners at the county level are going to be our cities, because they know what's going on. They understand. They're really where the rubber meets the road on economic activities, because the county largely is dealing with unincorporated areas. So it's the cities that I think we really need to make sure we strengthen our relationships with.
Yeah, as anybody who has driven through St. Louis. Now, I don't know if that's a model or not. It maybe is not a good example of it, but as you see, that growth has, obviously extends from the inside of the downtown area outward. It's really the only way it can go logically. But as you start to get anywhere near, I mean, you can be 50 miles outside of the city of St. Louis, and you really feel like, well, this looks like a lot like a city to me. And so as you see these things spread out, I mean, is St. Louis in any way a model for a right or wrong way to do it?
So, I suppose the thing is, you hear a lot, whether it's Kansas City or where they say, we're going to be the next Seattle or whatever. I don't see Clay County as being the next X county, whatever that may be. I see us as being a very much, the best Clay County we can be. I know it's a little cliche-ish, but one of the things that we really have going for us, I think that is rather unique, and we just touched on at the beginning, and that is the unique personalities of the municipalities. Because when a business comes, they're going to have certain needs, whether it's transportation, whether it's workforce, whatever it is, and each city has their different different assets. And so when businesses come in, it's, if they feel one city is not their best fit, we have a lot of alternatives. and that brings prosperity to the whole. So if a company decides to locate in Kearney, they're going to have employees working in Liberty, in Smithville, in
Right, good point.
Excelsior.
Yeah.
So I mean, it is truly the rising tide would lift all boats. So we're all winning on this, and by forming this kind of a coalition, I think that we promote that kind of a team effort, and that's what it's going to take to really bring us to our potential.
Right, and that's an ongoing effort that really, frankly, it's never going to stop. I mean, if you're going to continue to grow, the population is going to increase. So it's something you have to be on. I think, as you pointed out, being in the Economic Development Council,
and that's the thing
this morning, yeah,
and that's we have been back and forth as a county with our relationship with our EDC, our Clay County EDC. I've always advocated and continue that we make that a closer relationship because it's made up of private business individuals. Private business knows much more specifically how to promote that. We can, as government, we can help, but government doesn't create jobs. We can set an atmosphere that's conducive, but we don't do the actual heavy lifting.
Amen to that.
It's free enterprise.
Well, yeah, and it is in effect it's a grassroots. You are talking to the people who are giving you the information on the boots on the ground. Basically, those are the grassroots business owners who say, here's really what would be most helpful.
So often, government will be trying to help.
Yeah.
And what they'll do is, to use a metaphor, they'll say, private business, here's a hammer. You can use this tool. And businesses will say, we don't need a hammer. We need a screwdriver.
Right.
And the government will say, well, yeah, but this is a great hammer.
Exactly.
It's like, yeah, we need a screwdriver. No, here, take the hammer.
That
we need to
like
be
a
responsive.
Conversation I had with Brian this morning.
Take us to break, Jim.
We
do have to take a
for
break.
that.
That's
we
all right.
Take a break.
You were just up
Got
there.
to pay some bills here, but you're listening to Kearney Live on 102.7 FM. When we come back, I know a lot of you want to hear about it. We'll talk about it because I know you're thinking audit. What's up with the audit? We'll cover that and a few other things. You're listening to Kearney Live. Stay with us.
You love the programming? Say a special thank you to the underwriters like these who support KPGZ.
Simplify your banking, simplify your life. It's easy with Kearney Trust Company. The world has become fast-paced, and we understand that you are busy. That's why we offer a banking experience that's as simple and stress-free as can be. Kearney Trust goes beyond convenient locations and good customer care to offer banking services that make managing your finances quicker and easier than ever before. Online, bill pay, e-statements, and mobile banking are available to give you a positive banking experience so you can get back to your life and activities. Kearney Trust also provides capital to people and businesses so they can achieve their goals. Whether you know exactly what you want or just need someone to talk to about your dream, you can speak with them and work on that dream. You may just be getting off the ground or ready to move into your brick and mortar building. Kearney Trust will provide you and your business with the resources you need to succeed. Kearney Trust Company is your partner for success with 2 convenient locations in Kearney at 310 West 92 Highway and 701 Watson Drive in Price Chopper. The phone is 816-628-6666. Kearney Trust Company. Banking you can trust. Member FDIC.
And welcome back to Kearney Live. Glad you could join us today. Our guest in studio today is Jerry Nolte, the presiding commissioner of Clay County. And when we left off, we were talking about some of the development and the good things that are going on here in Kearney, because there is a lot of stuff that goes on where it makes it sound like everything's a disaster, which isn't really the case.
We know better.
There's good things going on. And we were talking about the different cities within Clay County. And, of course, the one thing that Kearney has that no other city has in Clay County specific, other than Kansas City, obviously. But when you talk about the smaller cities, is the radio station.
How about that?
We're proud to be here in
Well
Kearney.
done, Jim. That was the
Thank you.
Nice promo there. I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
So, but we did get a lot of questions before we started the show today, and we get them all the time. But people are looking for updates on the audit. So let's just kind of touch on that a little bit. I know it's underway. So where are we at with the audit and what's going on with that?
The audit, we do have auditors on premises within the building, so they are doing work to the degree that they can. I still think that they need to have more information. I think they have not quite gotten everything that they're asking for. I've been from the beginning an advocate to fully cooperate. There's no reason in my mind not to. So I would hope that we could do that and get it done. I think one of the main features of this is that it's taken so long. Had we cooperated in the beginning, we would be through the process, and at this point, I would hope be studying whether or not we want to implement some of the suggestions made from the audit and how we improve government. As it is, we're still mired in this in this unreasonable legal battle.
Well, and so as far as timing goes, we're going to run into an election.
Election, exactly
yeah,
right.
We've got an election coming up in 10 months, I guess. It was my understanding there would be no math. But we've got an election coming up. So there's no way, correct me if I'm wrong, there's no way this audit is going to be completed before the election happens.
I don't see. I mean, I suppose it's possible on some level, but I would think highly unlikely, which is a shame, because one of the things about having an audit, apart from informing government, is how we should be performing, where we could improve. It is informative for the public to say, here's what your government is doing. How do you want to proceed as far as the people who are running it?
Now, looking at it another way, so let's say the audit, and when I say completed, I don't mean just the part where they come in and they do I mean, they have to take all the information, compile it, make recommendations, and this, that, and the other. When it's 100% completed, 100% done, the good news is, I guess, we're looking at elections coming up. There's some very quality candidates, and we've had a couple in here that are running for those other commission seats. That would be, in my opinion, an outstanding time for a commission to come together and implement those things and make those changes that are recommended in the audit.
I think you're right. But when we, at the point we get the finished document, you don't just say, "Oh, great, and let's do something."
Right.
You have to analyze it a little bit. An interesting feature is on some local government entities, what they do is when they have had, new people come in, sometimes that will trigger a request from the government itself for an audit, more along the lines of trying to come up with an idea of where we are at this moment in time and what is our best way to go forward. So they get a very specific idea of where they are. So, I mean, that is not unknown that is one way to go about it. So the fact that, should we able to have, new commissioners, this would be very handy for them. And to tell you the truth, if they could have it prior to taking the oath, all the better, because preparation is everything.
Well, one of the things that I was really impressed with the people that we've had in here that are running for those positions is that they are following the progress. They're following what's going on. So should they win the election, the nice thing is they'll be able to hit the ground running. I mean, it's not like they're totally, and they, correct me if I'm wrong, but most of them have prior experience in this arena, in this area. So they are familiar, they have a background. It's not like they're going to come in and be completely blindsided with what's going on. They kind of know what's going on, which really could put us, even though we've got all this stuff going on now, it could really put us in a good position moving forward.
I think Barry McCullough, is that right?
Yeah, Barry was one of them, right. And he was the the mayor of Gladstone at one time.
Right.
He's been very involved with Clay County, so he has a definite background and knows what's going on.
Not an endorsement. I just felt like the guy, when we talked to him, that's what we're looking for.
No,
but one of the things that plays back onto is the discussion we had before the break, and that was about the relationship between the county and the municipalities. Barry obviously has some very substantial experience working with municipalities.
Exactly.
And that plays into, I think, what is an issue we need to pursue.
Yeah.
And if for those of you who live in the county, Barry McAuliffe has a bunch of information out there. Just go look at his Facebook page or Google him. It's going to come up. And there's also if you want to hear in detail some of the things he had talked about or some of the things that he wants to do, we had him in here. There's a podcast available and the Facebook Live video or on the YouTube channel or wherever you want to go. Twitter, Instagram, it's all there. But go look up Barry on our page, and you can watch the whole hour-long interview we had with him. And he talks a lot about his background. We also had
Bob Nance was in.
Bob Nance was in. He's running for treasurer.
Right.
Again, there's a whole program that's dedicated to him, so you can listen to what he has to say. And I'm not saying that to endorse these folks, but I'm saying that is a great avenue where you can sit and listen to them talk, or you can get to know what their background is and what they bring to the table as we move forward in 2021.
The sense I got, Jim, was that both of those individuals felt like you got the sense that when you talk about public service, as a public servant, I mean, I just got the sense that those guys they weren't just politicians, and I think their background proved it. I mean, from what their experience would indicate that, look, they won a couple of elections and important ones.
But you're right. Their experiences not only in the political arena,
right?
But both Bob and Barry, for example, have had their own small businesses.
Yes, exactly.
They understand what it means.
We talked about that.
Yeah, they understand that there are substantial problems with showing up every day, making sure the lights come on, making sure you make payroll. They've been on the front lines of what it means to create jobs and economic prosperity in a community.
Right. I think we have a question here that Brian's probably going to hand over to Jim. But yeah, as you're talking about that, I mean, to me, I think people are about up to here with lifetime politicians. I don't think, and I'm be a part of any political party to say, you know what, I am about ready for this republic to work the way it's supposed to, and that is, we send people to represent us not only in Washington D.C., but right here in our local governments.
Well, I think there is a good and reasonable balance to be had.
Mm-hmm.
I do understand the argument against what has been referred to as career politicians.
Right.
But on the other hand, you want someone who has experience in government. So
that's true.
I think if you can find somebody with that right mixture of experience in the governmental realm, but they understand private enterprise, they know what it's like to hold a job and to run a company and to make sure people got their paychecks.
I think that's right. And look, term limits, we have that already. It's called an election. And I would agree that, but I think that's for those of us who are running small businesses, you really want, you want the help that you need when you need it. But in the meantime, as you're running a business, you want to be able to have the freedom, the individual, the liberty to go do this thing with precious little oversight of any manner of government.
And that's the great thing about small businesses.
Right.
I'm very much a fan of small businesses, even as opposed to a larger business, is that they are nimble, much more so than big businesses and certainly much more than government. They are able to react to current situations and to do it in a positive manner.
No doubt about it.
Yeah, and I was trying to remember, Doug Irvin was also in here.
That's
he
right,
was the
Doug,
other one.
yeah.
I knew we had more, so Barry, Doug, and then Bob Nance were in here. And we've, to full disclosure, we have extended invitations to anybody who's running that they can come in and talk. What does Jerry think we as the public can do to help?
I think involvement by citizens is already making a big difference. We had discussed a little bit, I don't want to jump around too much subject-wise, but in the current budget year, the sheriff's budget now includes money for some of the commodities that I believe were woefully lacking in 19.
Right.
I still couldn't support the 2020 budget. However, the fact that some of those line items are now being funded, I think is due in no small part to public expressing their feelings. And I think sometimes it's easy for people in the public to not see the connection of how their reactions and how their opinions being expressed really does affect the government, but it does.
I think social media, sorry, Jim.
No, you're right.
I think social media plays a major role in that. In fact, I think social media was instrumental in the last presidential election. And you have a voice now.
Well, you bring up a good point, Mike. On social media, the funny thing is, so there's good and bad to social media, but one thing that social media does, whichever platform you want to use, Facebook, LinkedIn,
Twitter,
or as Mike uses, MySpace. But one thing it does is it allows people to get information out there that otherwise you would never see. So think for just a minute.
Yeah.
If we were back, when you go back to the times of where we had 3 TV stations, ABC, NBC, and CBS, and you had news that was 30 minutes a day, and I'm not a proponent of 24-hour news. I'm not just saying that's the greatest thing ever, because you can get over-newsed.
Oh, yeah.
However, you had 3 sources of news plus the newspaper, and it all kind of came from the same source. So one of the things, and we talked about this before, one of the things when I was growing up as a kid, which wasn't too much different from these old guys sitting on either side of me, is that we were always worried about the Russians. But you were always told that, there was state media, and state media would feed you what you were supposed to believe.
Oh, yeah.
But the funny thing is, of what we've learned now, is we're not wholly immune from that, because we were fed what they wanted us to, and now that we have so many sources of information.
Listen, I've got a computer in front of me, Jim, right here, and you have so much information, exactly as you say, at your fingertips, and it's not all from news organizations. There are individual news reporters that are not part of a national network, who provide excellent news and commentary if you want it, but there are people that you can follow on YouTube, on, as you say, on any platform, and that will lead you to really insightful, well-written documentation and materials that will back up more than just an opinion or just a narrative. And I think that's the thing that we would love to see, where people would just take it upon themselves and get a little more involved, Jerry, as you were saying earlier. And they have that opportunity.
But also learn.
Yes.
There's so much information out there. Don't just take what someone tells you for granted. Go learn. And that's one of the things, when we've talked about this before, Jerry, is trying to learn what the true things are that are going on that affect. And that's what I think is important with these candidates that are running, that we've talked about, Bob and Barry and Doug. They know, they've learned, but it's good for, and you guys, you've been very open about this as far as trying to keep the public in Clay County informed. And you've talked about open meetings, open sessions where people can learn, not just watch a 30-second news clip, but I mean, truly learn what's going on in Clay County.
Something else, and I don't know if we're coming, I don't want to crunch us on a break or anything.
Wait a minute. Yeah, go ahead.
That I think I try to look at things glass half full.
Right.
Obviously, we've got some terribly important issues going on in Clay County. The glass half full part of that is the involvement of the public, not only through social media, because there's a lot of that going on, but when you look at some of the reporting, this radio station, for example, the local newspapers, even the Kansas City Star, which obviously is local, but it's more regional,
right.
The news stations, it's the information out there now is much higher, and it's a much better quality than it was not that many years ago. And so that when people have an election or whatever they're working on to make a decision, it comes up, they have the ability to become much more well-informed. And with the internet, they have an interactive forum in which to say, well, this is the way I'm seeing this. Anybody else seeing it my way? Or
right.
am I crazy or what? And so I think the public square has just exploded.
Well said, well spoken. We're getting ready to take.
Just to tag on that, and then we'll let it go. But the funny thing is, and I encourage other people to do this too. When I read a story somewhere, and the first thing I think is, I don't know about that.
Right.
I go research it. Go figure out if it's true.
Be a skeptic, but be a healthy skeptic.
But learn and make sure that what you're before you go off on some tangent.
Right. You're listening to Kearney Live. Yep. Thank you, Jim. We are listening to Kearney Live. We've got Jerry Nolte in studio with us today, and he is a fun guest to have in here and a good friend. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Corporate underwriters of KPGZ programming include these fine businesses.
Simplify your banking, simplify your life. It's easy with Kearney Trust Company. The world has become fast-paced, and we understand that you are busy. That's why we offer a banking experience that's as simple and stress-free as can be. Kearney Trust goes beyond convenient locations and good customer care to offer banking services that make managing your finances quicker and easier than ever before. Online, bill pay, e-statements, and mobile banking are available to give you a positive banking experience so you can get back to your life and activities. Kearney Trust also provides capital to people and businesses so they can achieve their goals. Whether you know exactly what you want or just need someone to talk to about your dream, you can speak with them and work on that dream. You may just be getting off the ground or ready to move into your brick and mortar building. Kearney Trust will provide you and your business with the resources you need to succeed. Kearney Trust Company is your partner for success with 2 convenient locations in Kearney at 310 West 92 Highway and 701 Watson Drive in Price Chopper. The phone is 816-628-6666. Kearney Trust Company. Banking you can trust. Member FDIC.
And welcome back to Kearney Live. And I want to take just a minute to say thank you to Scott Middleton and the folks over there at Kearney Trust Company. He and Tanya Howes, who've done just a terrific job over there, and we work closely with them as they are the flagship sponsor of this very program. And they have been, Brian, since for going on 2 years now? He held 2 fingers up, yeah. And, man, we can't thank them enough, and they are historically a major, major part of this community, and I don't always take the time to thank them for what they do, not only for the radio station, which we really appreciate, but certainly for everything they've done in the community and, frankly, for the surrounding area in Clay County. Jim.
Yes, sir.
We left out a name when we were talking about all the great new candidates.
Yeah, because we were talking about new candidates, which is actually
right.
going to help me segue into a question I had. But the Clay County Sheriff has some candidates that are out there. One of the candidates we've had in here, who I think is a outstanding selection, would be an outstanding sheriff, is Will Aiken. And it's not only his background, but his story is phenomenal. If you've heard his story of where he came from and how he got to where he is today, is an outstanding story. But one of the things, talking about the sheriff's department, is one of the things that's come up is there's a lot of bills that weren't paid or haven't been paid. And I guess from a private individual standpoint, if I, for example, had Brian over here and I contracted him to polish my car or something like that.
Well, you mean he's moonlighting?
Yeah, doing things on the side, or,
maybe we're not paying him enough.
Shovel the driveway or whatever.
Yep.
But he would expect me to pay him, and I can't not pay him, And so I know there's a lot of people with the county that have contracted with the county for services through the sheriff's department. And I think a lot of that, and you touched on some of it, but deals with like feeding the inmates or clothing or whatever. How does the county justify or talk about not paying those bills?
Yeah, that's something that's been a very major concern, certainly through most of last year. I don't know how you do it, because the thing is, I also have had a small business.
Right.
And, it was my expectation that I would be paid. Right now, that is still, unfortunately, the subject of some debate, and we need to pay that. That's still, that case is apparently been appealed to the Supreme Court. Whether the Supreme Court will decide to hear it or not, we will see. In my opinion, we should just go ahead and get these bills settled.
Do the right thing.
Do the right thing. Because the thing is, it to a degree, it doesn't matter what the decision comes down. We still owe the money.
Yeah.
We still owe something in the order of $600,000.
Oh,
Yeah, and that's where I think a lot of people have confusion, and I know I do. You owe the money, pay the bill.
Right.
I mean, I don't know how you're not arguing that the people did not provide the service or didn't provide it to an adequate level. So I'm not sure where the argument is.
It's an internal argument. So it's if it would be as though the vendor were saying, well, no, Jim told me he would pay. Well, no, Mike said no, and it was, it doesn't matter. The company owes me money,
right? And that's
and the county owes the money.
That's not their problem.
No, it's not. It's it's the problem of our own organizational structure that we need to get much better at. And most other entities seem to be able to manage to pay their bills. You guys, it looks as though you paid your light bills. So you guys have managed to do some of the things that county government has not quite mastered.
We paid our rent. The building took care of the light bill.
Gotcha.
Fortunately,
he better.
We are off the air then.
But
That would be a problem.
But happily, right now we are
Good
in a
point.
new budget year, and like I said, in spite of the fact that I disagreed with many of the things in that budget, one of the things that it has done is allowed a recharging of those accounts that some of those bills are paid out of. What happened was it was underfunded in 19, so we ran out of money in those line items. Those have been now rejuvenated, so now my expectation is bills generated for the 2020 year will be paid to those vendors, so at least there will be some relief. At least that's my hope.
But you still, I mean, in all reality, you still owe the money, and you're robbing Peter to pay Paul in a way, because you still owe what is out there, and I realize it's in litigation, I guess, for lack of better words, but it's
in litigation that, in my point of view, is I don't want to say frivolous, because that has legal meaning, and I'm not trying to get a legal point here, but it is ridiculous. It is ridiculous to think that we are not going to pay them and that the Supreme Court is somehow going to uphold that case. Because the thing is, even if it were determined that the sheriff needed to spend it, his money is rolled back. Any extra money he has is rolled back into the 2020 budget. So you can't spend that money because it's going to be swept.
And for those I'm sorry, Mike, for those people who are trying to understand or get caught up or whatever, what is the argument that's going in front of the Supreme Court? It's not, just to be clear, it's not that you're not, I'm sorry, the county isn't saying the service that was provided was inadequate or wasn't provided or anything like that.
Right, well, what's the case?
What's the argument?
Yeah. The thing is, the vendors are not technically involved in this particular legal action. This is between the sheriff and the county. The base action is the sheriff filing suit, a writ of mandamus, saying, county, do your job, and your job is to fund these particular line items. The county is pushing back, and since I don't agree with it, I hesitate to characterize it too much because I don't agree with it, so my characterization is going to have some
a little bit of bias toward what's right.
Yeah, that would be where I'd go with that.
I can say that.
So, I mean, there seems to be a thing that, well, no, the sheriff should have just shifted money out of other items.
Nonsense.
That is nonsense. The current budget the sheriff has is roughly along the lines of what he had in 2018. Another budget I voted against because I didn't agree with the cuts that came in that year as well. So while the sheriff's budget has improved somewhat, it is not near where it needs to be. We still need to be able to fund these basic needs that law enforcement has. And if you can't have citizens feeling safe in their communities, how in the world do you have economic development and prosperity? And we have to do our jobs. That's just the long and the short of it.
Right. And in the meantime, the small business or medium-sized business or whatever, who is sitting out there waiting to get paid for the services that would go to the jail, they're trying to run their business on without the revenue stream that they needed to, guess what, run their business.
Well, they still have to make payroll. They still turn on their lights.
Exactly.
They still have to buy their raw materials to provide their services.
And they're sitting out there in the cold, not even a part of the lawsuit.
That was so. Taking food, for example, if they're providing food for the inmates, then they have to buy the food, and they have to have the employees that do whatever processing they do to get the food over to the inmates. And that company is not getting paid to do that, so they're basically putting up their own money to keep this thing going,
and being penalized by it now
for something they had nothing to do with.
Really, all they're trying to do is they won the contract, the award, I assume.
Yes,
and here they are stuck with this thing, maybe scratching their heads and saying, "Wow, is this something we really wanted?" It's not what they expected by any means.
No, it's not.
And I think I mentioned too, just off the air, I asked you about it, Jerry. Sorry to interrupt, but this is important. Will they have some remedy in terms of interest payment on, because it's taken so long? How does that work for these small businesses?
I think what we're going to have to do is, when we sit down and once the litigation is finally over, once we've discovered that, yes, we do owe this money and we need to make it right, then we sit down with the vendors and say, okay, so what, first and foremost, you go back to the contract. Are there provisions in there for late payments? What are those particular items in the contract, and how do we honor our contract? Because first and foremost, if you're not honoring contracts, why would anybody want to do business with you?
Right, exactly.
But the problem I struggle with a lot on this deal is that, and you talked about it before, there are contracts that are not being, and this is not just with the Sheriff's Department, there are contracts that are not being fulfilled. There are payments that are not being made, and with those payments come late fees. And so the county has to pay the late fee, whether it's today or with these things with the Sheriff's Department tomorrow. And it's easy to say the county's going to pay the late fee, but let's be honest, it's the citizens that pay the late fee through your taxes and whatnot. So in essence, the citizens are being penalized for something that our elected officials are not allowing to happen. Is that accurate?
It is. I mean, the thing is, we talk about government money, government funding. That is basically people funded. It is the citizens. This is not the money that the government spends at whatever level is basically money that was derived from people paying taxes, fees, whatever. But there is no such thing as government money in that sense. It is all the people's money, and we are supposed to be respecting that trust.
And so what I would say is this. You'll remember back years, for those of you who are old enough, remember back to when a certain presidential candidate said, "No new taxes." He said, "Read my lips." Well, read my lips now. Nothing is free. It just does not happen. Somebody has to pay for it. And no matter how you look at it, it's going to come around to be you, the taxpayer.
Right.
So, and this is on any level. So when we talk about free healthcare, free college, free this, free that, it's not free. Free food, not happening. Somebody has to pay somewhere. It just happens. It has to happen. So the same thing holds true on any level, and it holds true here. So every time we hear about a missed payment or a missed bill and a late fee, you're being penalized for something that, quite frankly, you probably had nothing to do with.
I think we should hold any level of government to the same standard that every single one of us as taxpayers and homeowners or trying to live our own life, whether it's an apartment or home, whatever. You pay your bills. You take responsibility for your own life, and you do the right thing. I mean, why is it so beyond the realm of possibility to expect that any level of government, especially the federal government, shouldn't really operate by the same standard?
And that's why it's important that there's a phrase, and I know we're getting close to the end of the time here, so I won't get too deep into a new subject, but a certificate of participation whereby the county borrowed roughly $52 million, that is money that will be paid back by citizens via the government. And that is why it was important, and continues to me to be important, that we should have gone to the people.
Right.
There should have been an election, because the phrase consent of the governed is more than just a very, eloquent turn of phrase. It has absolute meaning, and it is absolutely necessary if we're going to have a healthy government.
No doubt about it. Jerry, how do people get a hold of you if they want to?
I'm right here. No, I'm kidding.
Well, that's true. Yeah, true.
You can call my office. My email address is jnolt@claycountymo.gov.
There it is.
And so, certainly feel free to email me.
You're on Facebook too.
I'm on Facebook.
Yep.
That would probably be about as good a way as any, because that way it's also a bit more immediate. It's not the official channel, but I think it's a good way. And
right.
I don't care how people get a hold of me, as long as you're not knocking on my door at 2 a.m.
Right. Well, don't do that, Jim.
And I will say this, just be 100%. You have always been very transparent and very responsive. So the people I've talked to, and when I've reached out to Jerry, and people would say, well, it's because he's always been very responsive. But the other people I've talked to, citizens and that, who have reached out, have always been very complimentary about how responsive Jerry is. So if you really have something, and this is my personal thing, be a little responsible. Don't try to get a hold of him at 10 o'clock at night and expect a response at 10:01 or something, unless it's like a crisis.
That's the beauty of social media.
Yeah,
you can leave a message.
No, he's been very responsive. I will say that.
Yep, no doubt about it. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Jerry, for being with us today. You've been listening to Kearney Live. Join us again next week. I don't know who the guest is going to be. Brian, do you? He's shaking his head. Yes, we'll let you know so he doesn't have to shout it. Thanks so much for being a part of this. We love that you're listening to us. 102.7 FM. You've been listening to Kearney Live. See you next week.